the question I have had, when it actually happens, when somebody becomes an investigator, where is this borderline between being interested, being in the place, or knowing something about an issue and so on, and then something happens and turns you into an investigator?
How do we know things? Because although obviously animals and plants can be said to know stuff, I think that there's something kind of quintessentially human about thinking about knowing. And this seems like a kind of perhaps like a rarefied philosophical perspective, but actually as investigators, we kind of rub up against issues all the time, which are actually kind of classical philosophical issues about how do we know what we know.
Yeah, to me, it's the act of investigating is actually using ways of collecting data and building it together. And you know, we might learn how to collect data, but investigation is a mindset that has to be transferred into how we process all of that together. And you're right. It's you know, there's one will lead to another, and they're not very cleanly cut separately. But then just we think of them only as starting points and ways of collecting the initial.
So for us, it's very important when we look at data to kind of make sure that we're not talking about patterns and abstractions and trends in data sets per se, but they always are related to something that is happening or will be happening in the actual world.
Thinking about you know, the visible, what's partially visible, how do we in our kind of world of the senses, looking at scattered, isolated, fragmented things, how do we understand the connections between them, and how do we see the thing underneath, if you like, underneath the tip of the iceberg, that is actually the thing that shapes what is going on in reality?
You can't disentangle storytelling from the act of investigation. One person's story is the start of another person's investigation, and the end of one investigation it can be told as well. So sometimes it's very difficult to disentangle that. And I think, I can't remember if it was you, Jim, who was asked, what do I do when I first have a story? And then you said, you might have said, release it first and see if there's more to go on or if there's interest. And that is also part of it. Like, the investigation is not over, but part of investigating further is putting it out there.
Maybe one of the roles that we should also play as community is to be able to tell stories that simplify information for people rather than forcing them to dig for themselves, that deconstruct things for them, that demystify things for them, and so forth, etc. Because we all rely on sources of information that we trust.